Hey everybody, welcome back to the Balcony People podcast. I'm Milani,
And I'm Brittany.
and this will be part two to recognizing your decisions. And I'm gonna let my mom start.
So we left off talking about why apologies are important. Um, and I think really for me on this side of things, on the adult side of things, I could not wrap my head around apologizing to my kids at first. In the old mentality of thinking and the way I was raised, we didn't apologize for things. And so I think that it was really important for me to understand that apologies are necessary because it validates the feelings of the other person. And in general, it just really makes the relationship stronger because you're essentially telling your child, I hear you and I understand what you're feeling. And so I think the hardest part of that was, again, admitting I don't always do everything right. And so, in essence, when I do apologize, like I said, I'm validating her feelings in the argument or conversation or whatever is being had. And that essentially opened a door for trusting me again because I wasn't just sitting here saying, no, you're wrong. I was saying, you know what? I'm sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have reacted that way. I shouldn't have done things this way. Let's think of a better avenue next time. And then I can reflect on how I handled the situation and what I can do better for the next time that it happens, essentially.
I think that actually telling your kids I'm sorry that I did this. It's putting into perspective what is normal for them, and it the way you treat them reflects with who they're around. And I think you very much have to keep that in mind. And it doesn't, this matters on so many levels, like in whatever stage in their life that they're at now. Like, I'm in high school. The way my mom's and my, our relationship, for me, it reflects with who I hang out with. Cause like, I have cut out some people that I very much do not need to be hanging out around. And that's all because she's putting that into perspective for me that like if they're not treating you the way you're supposed to be treated, not even the way you would like to be treated, the way you are supposed to be treated, then you don't need that in your life. And that, like I said, that goes to everything on so many levels, on like friendships, on relationships, jobs. Like if you're in a bad work environment, if you if you grew how do I say this? If you raise your child not not putting things into perspective as in like you need to be around good, healthy things, and I don't know how else to put that. I think that's a good way, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you're not around good, healthy things, you need to get out of there. You need to leave that relationship. You need to not ghost. I don't think.
But set those boundaries.
Yeah.
Because if we don't apologize for things that we're doing to the kids, right, they will in turn not expect apologies from people who are disrespecting them, being unkind to them, or whatever. And that travels back to your workplace, like she said. I can honestly tell you guys that this past year, at my current in my current position, I've probably asked my boss to go home when I didn't feel mentally prepared for the day or mentally capable to handle the stress of the day more times this year than I ever have in my entire life. Because I was always taught that you work hard, you do your job, and you will be rewarded. But that's not exactly the case in the work life. It's you work hard, you do your job, and then you get other people's jobs too. And that's not really fair. But there are days when I genuinely cannot handle anything else on my plate. And you guys know we talk about church a lot. The Lord carries me through my work days because let me tell you, it can be very stressful. And I'm sure Leilani feels the same at school. It can be very stressful. And part of rebuilding your relationship is understanding that just because they're only in school doesn't mean that they have less stress than you do. And that was something that really I did not get at first. I'm like, you are just in school. There is no crazy amount of stress in your life. But hearing some of the issues that she was having with other girls, I'm just like, this is crazy. Because when I was growing up, I did not have an issue with cliques or drama. I went to a very small school and pretty much everyone got along with everybody. We had people that we picked on, and I say we because I was a problem in high school. I was not a very nice person. Um, but we had the certain people that we picked on or whatever. But for the most part, we all pretty much got along.
And like adding on to that, like you're just in school. There's so many things, like even like the little things. It's just the same as like your parents at work. They're going through stressful things. I mean, maybe I don't know for sure, but I know there are some days where like it's a lot, and it some days can be like that in school. It's just they're different environments because one environment is you're getting paid to sit there and do your job, and sometimes other people can mess with your head, and it's kind of the same thing, except we're not getting paid. That'd be so cool if we got paid to go to high school.
Speaking of getting paid, I told my kids once that I'm not going to pay them for chores because nobody's going to pay them to do it when they're older. And it's essentially the same thing with work. Like, yes, I do get paid to be there, but that just doesn't mean that I can do whatever I want at work. Like, there's rules, and this all goes back to the pajama conversation. I don't allow my kids to wear pajamas unless it's pajama day at school. On the podcast? I don't think so. I'm just bringing it up now.
I'm like, did we talk about that?
I don't allow them to wear pajamas to school. I don't allow them to walk out the house looking all crazy because at the end of the day, there are a certain set of standards that I have when they are out in the world representing me.
I will say, Amari's fro was an exception.
Y'all don't even know what she's talking about, but at some point my son had a huge afro, um, and literally trying to comb it was just insane.
It wasn't like, okay, just for a little bit of clearance, it wasn't like his scalp was nasty or anything. It was just like his we didn't cut it for so long because he liked his fro, and it just like the curls like curled around each other, and it was just like a huge mess. He does have braids now. He looks pretty swagger. I will.
It was just very tangled and messy because I didn't make him do anything with his hair.
Yeah.
And that's my own fault. I am fully aware of that. But now, he's got his sides shaved and he is expected to have his hair either braided or combed.
Something going on that's not crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, it all goes back to how I'm represented as a parent. And I've always told my kids as well, you're not going to be out here acting a fool because at the end of the day, you are a representation of me. Going back to apologies, I've made my kids apologize to teachers for the way that they've acted. Not Leilani. I've never had an issue with her with teachers, but Amari has made a teacher cry. It was an innocent thing. It was not it the way the situation happened. was he was being confronted by a teacher. Amari's not good with confrontation, and so he started rambling. The teacher didn't appreciate that, and he was trying to explain, I don't do well with confrontation. She got frustrated, walked out of the classroom and started crying. And so for me, I was like, first of all, these teachers do not get paid enough to put up with your baloney. I understand what he was trying to do in explaining that he's not good with confrontation, but there was also another way for him to handle that. And he did go and apologize to her the next day. And he had to have lunch detention, I think, for a week because of that. And it wasn't just him, there were other kids involved. But, you know, I don't pull my kids out of punishment either. If you're being punished by the school for something, lunch detention or whatever, you're gonna do that punishment because I'm not at school. I don't see what you're doing at school, so I can't sit here and say, right, I can't vouch for you. Were you doing that? I can't say no.
Yeah, that all goes back to that one situation we talked about where I was in that group and
Yeah.
a security guard smelled me. Like everything draws back, and I think everything, but like everything goes back to the same things, and it's like that's a representation of her and the rest of our family. And like, see, for me, I mean, I I'm in powerlifting, like I do sports, and my brother he's in band, so like everything goes back to everything kind of everything has a consequence, even if it's good or bad.
Absolutely.
See, like there are some things where like they're not as big, like the pajama things. I mean, I've gotten by with it. I mean, I don't care too much because my style has kind of changed, I guess. So I don't really want to wear pajamas out unless it is pajama day. But that all goes back to like, well, if you're wearing pajamas in her mind, that's just like you didn't want to get out of bed and you're lazy. But in our generation's mind, I'm not trying to like bring everyone off or anything, but in our generation's mind, or my generation, I guess, it's
Comfortable.
yeah, it's just comfy. It's the same thing as wearing sweats, just fuzzy. That's mm, mm,
I'm making a face. That's why she's doing that. But I understand comfort. And I'm not even going to get off on this tangent about pajama pants. I just think that it's inappropriate. They're very thin. It's just inappropriate, and that's just how I feel. And she'll probably never change my mind about this.
she'll probably never change my mind about it because normally when I do wear pajama pants, I wear something not like
Underneath
shorts.
them, yes.
Yeah,
Because that's the rule.
no, that's not the rule. But it's normally because when they have pajama days, it's freaking cold outside.
Right.
But yeah. What was this before? Everything leads back. Everything has a consequence.
Right. It's a full circle moment, really, to how far we've come in our communications. Because the first time the pajama thing came up, I was like, no. Didn't give no explanation about it. I just flat out said no. And on her end of it, she didn't understand what the big deal was. And I get it because, like she said, in this generation, it's so normalized to wear pajamas everywhere.
It's style.
Yeah. And so, full circle moment, like we've been able to have the actual conversation about why I feel it's inappropriate. And, she has her opinion on it. I have my opinion on it, but she knows not to even try to wear them outside of the house unless it's pajama day. And that's the end of it. Because even though I allow her a gateway of communication with me, it doesn't necessarily always change the rule.
Yeah.
And that's what's important to know. Just because I'm giving her an avenue of communication with me doesn't mean that every single thing has to change. And I don't have to bend the rule for just for the sake of her having that conversation with me.
Yeah. And moving on to the next topic, I'm gonna talk about how it felt having that like having that gateway of communication for the first time, because man, it was
The apology, not the communication.
oh yeah, the apologies. It's a it's weird to explain because like obviously not everybody hasn't been apologized to by their parents, but there's a certain way that she was apologizing and the things she was apologizing for. And by this I mean I'm just gonna make little bit of clearance, even though you guys probably understand what I mean when I'm talking about certain apologies, but it's different than when she bumps into me and she's like, "Oh, sorry, that's my bad." It's it's like if you because for us before all of this happened, it was normally what would happen was if we got in a fight and after we were done fighting, she would go to her room, I would go to my room, and we wouldn't talk about it, and there'd be like some mild sour feelings for a couple days, and then we were okay. What?
It is now, but it wasn't.
Oh,
When you get that apology.
when you get that apology, it feels so good because like you you hadn't got that before, and it's just like it's really like a moment because I think one of the first times it happened, we had just gotten in a fight, and it was a lot. I think it was maybe a day after because it was a big topic. She called me into a living room and she had me sit down and she said, "I'm sorry for my yelling. I know you might understand why I was, but I'm sorry for doing so. I should have approached it differently." She said it's okay, and I'm gonna be honest, I did kind of start crying because like it's it's a really big thing to have that happen when you haven't had that happen. And now I'm kind of repeating myself. I don't know how to put it into words really.
Yeah, that first apology was really emotional for both of us. Um, like she said, she's never received that before, and I've never done that before with my kids. I mean, I've apologized to other people, but I had never apologized to my kids. And it's something that I really take to heart now, not only here at home, but with my kids in my church classroom as well. You know, I apologize to them when I don't always do things correctly, or I misspeak about something. Or the other day we were talking about um, when Jesus died on the cross, and one of my students said that Judas was the one that killed himself after. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that was Peter. And I was wrong. And so the next time I saw her, I was like, I do have to tell you, I'm sorry, because you are right. It was Judas. And she's like, yeah, I knew that. I just wasn't going to argue with you. And so it's something that I take to heart with every kid in my life, not just my own kids. And I think that that's really important to note too, because even if you don't have other kids or teenagers in your life, at some point you will come across at least another one, whether that be your children's kids or grandkids or whatever. Um, it's just a really important factor in the whole scheme of the communication because, like I said, it validates their feelings and it lets them know that we make mistakes too. And even though they can see that we make mistakes, right? Because we talked about last week how they're recognizing that we're not always doing the best job. So even though they can see it, when we apologize for those things, we are validating that we're aware that we're not doing this correctly. There is a better way that we could do this. whether that be the actual communication or, handling a situation where there's no talking at all. Like when Leilani wants to lay with me and I just don't feel like being touched. I'm not a very touchy person. So there's that. We are out of time. So I think that this is a great place to end this part of the conversation.
Um,
If you guys have any questions about this episode or the last episode, or if you would like clarity, please email in. And then also, if you have any topics you would like us to cover, you can email those in as well. thebalconypeople24@gmail.com.
or if you don't feel like emailing us, just go ahead and leave a comment. And by request, I'm gonna shout out my best friend Emma, who has done so much for me, and I don't really think she. I mean, I know she knows, but I don't think she knows completely. And just a reminder that there are people in your life that you can go to, even when it doesn't feel like it.
So next week, the next episode, I really want to talk about church attendance because it is something that we fought a lot about in the beginning. So I know that church is not everyone's cup of tea, and that is okay. But we in this household strongly believe, and I say we because I know that my kids believe this as well because of things that they've experienced, not what I've told them. We firmly believe that church attendance and having a relationship with God is one of the most important things that you can do. And so look forward to that topic. And like I said, it's not for everyone, but it's an important conversation to have. So looking forward to hanging out with you guys next time. And
One more thing before we go, if you would like to try out church, and this is just a suggestion, so if you're not with that, don't take it to heart. But our church is open on Sundays and Wednesdays, and up until the 21st, we will be having devotionals at 6 o'clock, six in the afternoon, and
6 in the morning, 12 noon, and 6 p.m. until the 21st. Our regular services are Sunday mornings at 8:30 and then again at 11 and Wednesday evenings at 6:30.
But by the time this episode comes out, it's going to probably gonna have a better chance of making it to a Wednesday service. So our church's name is Cottonwood. We're on the way to Thule, so if you would like to give it a try, you don't really need to sign up. You can just walk through the doors.
And we would love to welcome you.